Hello and welcome to Protect and Prevent podcast. My name is Opal Singleton. This is our third in a long series of podcasts. Particularly in this case, it's related to online seduction. So my name is Opal Singleton. I'm the president and CEO of Million Kids. That is MILLION, millionkids.org. For over 15 years now, we have been combating human trafficking and online social media exploitation of minors. And it has been one hell of a journey, if I'm allowed to say that. It has been very, very interesting. We've run all kinds of radio shows. We've had other podcasts. We have been in the business of helping parents and grandparents and school officials, and especially law enforcement and code enforcement, all kinds of first responders, in understanding how to keep our kids safe from predators. And we have been doing that for 15 years. But I have something heavy on my heart I want to share with you today because I've been giving this a lot of thought. Now, the subject is online seduction, and this subject is not new to me. In fact, way back in about 2014, I think it was, I wrote a book called SEDUCE, The Grooming of America's Teenagers, and it has sold tens of thousands of copies. I believe it's still on Amazon, and certainly you can still get it at millionkids.org. It's a bit dated, but the idea and the basis for it is what I want to talk about today, because though the technology has changed, the seduction process used by pedophiles and predators has not changed a whole lot. Now, certainly they're getting a lot more sophisticated. That I won't disagree with. That is absolutely true. But I want to talk about why and how all of this takes place. So as we look at this, one of the things I want to share with you today is this crazy thought that we have about how do you get someone to send a nude online that you have never met before, and especially if it's a teenager sending it. Now, as we all know, romance scams take place, and grandma and grandpa are sending it too. That's a bit scary, isn't it? But anyway, but how do you get someone to send a nude online after only meeting someone for a very short time, and then in a matter of minutes, you send off your most intimate possession, your most intimate attribute about yourself? Well, it's an interesting kind of conversation, and it is changing at the speed of light because of technologies. You know, the idea behind the book, Societal Shift, The World Without Borders, A Home Without Walls, that's the second book I wrote. The idea behind that book is how technology is changing to make it so much easier for predators and pedophiles to access each and every one of us for a scam. But the idea of being seduced in and having that moment of fantasy, or maybe living in a fantasy, has not changed. Now, under Societal Shift, we talk about how much more easy it is, how much more likely it is for predators to succeed in seducing in grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, and kids alike. Because think about what has happened. We have had a technological transformation unlike we have ever seen in all of history. And if you think about all of that coming together, you know, when we first got started on the internet way back when, we had the ability to reach most people by email, and we had their address. But then came along Instagram and things like TikTok, and those are called mass audience live streaming. It used to be at first in Facebook, I'd have like 45 friends, and I would unfriend them or whatever, but I knew who they were. But when you got Instagram, everything was by hashtag. So you create an Instagram and you add a hashtag, and it goes out to millions of people you have never met. Well, it didn't take long for predators and pedophiles to learn that they should just go on the really sexy hashtags, and they're going to meet people who are probably more vulnerable to being seduced in. You know, hashtag hot cam girls, hashtag itty bitty bikini. all of those kinds of things, pedophiles learn very quickly. You sign up and go on those hashtags, and you're going to find someone who is more easier to seduce than if you're just talking on something like National Geographic, let's say. And the same kind of thing happened with our kids in TikTok. Because again, you make a 1-minute video, you have a lot of fun, you shoot it out there, and it goes by categories, and it goes out to millions and millions of people. So now our kids, instead of talking to someone they know, is really talking and sending out information about themselves to millions of people. Well, that greatly expands the number of people who are going to be exposed to them and be exposed to their profile. And there are certain profiles that pedophiles and predators and, yes, overseas cartels are looking for to be able to go online and seduce. And so they will start to look at keywords and your profile and what you're looking for. So predators understand fantasy more than any other creature on earth. The basis to fantasy is we all want what we don't have. And it works in many, many different ways. I've seen more than one marriage dissolved and destroyed because, they have someone at home raising maybe 3 little kids and letting themselves go and not being all dressed up all the time and being ready to have a nighttime romp at will and like that. And they meet someone online, and this person is right there for them. They're sexy, they're hot. Now they're paying for it. It's called webcam sex, but you can arrange to have a regular meeting with a webcam sex person and develop that relationship. And it doesn't take long for a fantasy to develop, because that person on webcam sex, their only job for about 5 minutes is to make you feel like you're the only person on earth. And the way that goes, and pretty soon you're starting to fall in love with all the things that person is providing you. And when you come back to reality, the kids have got to go to the dentist and there's toys all over the floor, and she's not in the mood to cook dinner tonight. And all of a sudden you have a big chasm of choices. And it's very easy to fall in love with that one that is seduced online. So you have, back to technology, you have mass audience live streaming. We're reaching lots of people, but you also have the ability to go out and reach millions of websites around the world that are designed to please you, that are designed to lure you in. Anytime you're accessing those websites, you're getting a profile. You're getting an artificial profile. I've had cases, because I fight human trafficking, where people have wanted to send me pictures of women walking up and down the street, soliciting sex. And I'm like, don't do that, because I'm going to get an artificial profile for pornography. And I don't want that profile. But every one of us now have a profile for this kind of thing. And we not only have mass audience live streaming, we have artificial intelligence coming on in a big way. Now, if I do this very same show at the same time next year, the level of complexity of artificial intelligence will be mind-boggling. There's a team of us here at Million Kids of about 8 people that study the research and share it out so that people can combat this. And it is all we can do to keep up with artificial intelligence. And so what will happen here is that you get this fantasy going because people have a profile about you and they can reach you. And so pretty soon they're offering out exactly what you want. Fantasy is a way of giving you whatever little hole in your life is that they can fill in for you. Maybe it's a beautiful wife who pays only attention to you and thinks you're the greatest, hottest hunk on earth. Or maybe it's a sexy, caring husband who admires your intelligence and thinks you're beautiful, and your own husband hasn't spoken to you for a couple of days because he's very busy at the office working on some requisition that he's got to work on. But it also works for teen girls and guys. Think about how this works. You get, first of all, it's just insane to me that we are taking our hormonal teenagers who are looking for love anywhere they can find it, and usually in all the wrong places, okay? And we put them online so they can be reached by millions of predators and pedophiles. Sometimes it's, you want to make money. That's another kind of fantasy. Look at all the Bitcoin scams that are out there. Because, when was the last time you bought a lottery ticket or went to a casino? Okay. We all want more money than we currently have. I think in the Bible it's called greed, but anyway, but predators understand that. You're playing in a video game and you're getting your acceptance, your inclusion, your recognition because you're able to beat out several other people and you're on a higher level. And so you play more and more video games and you're living in a fantasy world in a video game. And it is very easy for predators to come online and connect with you, and without you being able to analyze who that person is and what is really happening. So video games are great access points because you're already not dealing with reality. You're already in a competitive environment. And so when someone comes in, you're already working with people you don't know, and you learn to trust them. You do that in a video game as you compete with other people that you have never met. I was thinking about this very subject when I was thinking about working with human trafficking victims. Think about this. This is how a young girl gets seduced into sex trafficking. It is, very seldom do they come along and kidnap you. That isn't how it normally happens. Pimps specialize in creating a fantasy world as part of that grooming process. I have seen it over and over and over. It is no surprise that the most likely victims of trafficking are those people that are raised in the foster care system, because they're no different than us. They're smart, they're intelligent, they want to be loved, and they look around. I was very, very fortunate to have two parents who thought I was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Well, most of the time, but foster kids don't have that. And that's what makes them such easy prey for a pimp or a pedophile or an online scam, because somebody will come along with them and say, hey, baby, you're hot. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to be here for you. I'm sorry you haven't had someone in your life up for now, but today it will change. I will take care of you. I'm going to marry you. One day you can have my baby. I'm sorry your dad isn't there for you. I know your mom's boyfriend is a creep. I get all that, but trust me, and I'll take you away from this. And that's exactly how pimps prey on fantasy. They don't have to kidnap you. They simply listen to your holes in your heart, and they come along and give you what you want. By the way, so do those things at the web, so those folks at the webcam sex kind of thing, where you're male or female, they start poking around and figuring out what it is that pushes your buttons, and they're going to sell it to you. Yes, they will sell it to you. You will go through a lot of money. So the grooming and seduction process is especially damaging for prepubescent kids and early teens. And this is the reason why I cringe when I see young people with cell phones, because they're on there with 5 billion people, and a significant portion of 5 billion people are bad people. It's a little bit, I know this is going to maybe make you cringe, but I want you to think about this for a minute. It's a little bit like taking your prepubescent daughter down to a strip club and leaving her off for 15 minutes to see how she holds up against all the guys in there looking to have a good time. They simply do not have the cognitive decision processes. They may not have a clear and total understanding of adult sexuality, and they won't understand when they are being groomed and seduced or how to protect themselves. So that is the danger of putting prepubescent kids online. And it's also not that they're bad kids. I mean, one of the things that happens is I hear from parents all the time, well, I put my 9-year-old da. And I told him, and I watched him, but I get busy, and sure enough, he's gone on to da. Well, you can't unsee what you just saw, and it will change your life forever. And it is you, the parent, who went on and signed up for that app. And part of that signing up for that app, by the way, and I'm not here to beat up parents, but I want you to think about this. When you download an app on a phone that you're about to hand to a 9-year-old, you most likely are downloading an app where you agree that you won't hand it to anyone under 13. And then you hand it to your prepubescent child. And you're saying, well, he's a good kid, or she's a good kid, or so far they haven't ever done anything. And I talk to them and I'm going to watch them. All of that is really good, but all it takes is once. Because once you get put out online, here's the danger of that. Kids that age are easy to groom. They're very influential, especially that 11, 12-year-old age. They're all looking around to see who thinks they're hot. And are they fitting in? And are they okay? And if they're not fitting in, they're even more easy to seduce because they want to fit in. Every one of us wants to fit in. And that's the basic nature of it. And that's exactly why predators go online and look for very young kids. Very old statistic. I cannot find the newer version of this that I can validate. And I don't like statistics. I can't say the word. I don't like statistics that I can't validate. But the FBI states that over 750,000 predators and pedophiles are online at any given time. And so it's kind of crazy to give a young person unfettered access to the internet is kind of like taking them, out on a freeway and leaving them off and tell them to play there. And you don't mention cars are coming up and down it. And when they get hit, then you call Caltrans and blame them. No, anytime you put a child on the World Wide Web without being able to control what they can access and who can access them, which is even more important, not that your child's a bad child, I'm not suggesting that, but they're available online to be accessed. And that's the problem. They will not have the capacity to understand what they're up against. They don't have any life experiences yet to deal with that. They may not understand the whole nature of adult sexuality. They don't have the discipline and the judgment to recognize when they're in trouble and when a predator is trying to lead them into an illicit activity. By the time they start to realize that they're in danger, it's too late. I think of a case that I dealt with. This was a case that, by the way, let me take this minute to give you a little brief commercial here. Million Kids has probably the best newsletter in the business. It's called In the News, and it's free. And if you want to learn about this, go to millionkids.org and sign up. That's all there is to it. We don't sell your name. We don't hound you. Okay, a couple, 3 times a year, I try to do fundraising because we are a nonprofit, okay? And we can't exist if people don't donate. So thank you for those that are listening that donate. You're the lifeblood of this organization and you make it happen. But go to millionkids.org and sign up for our newsletter and share it with other people you know. Where I'm going with this is we had a story, and what happens is there's about 8 of us. We look at all kinds of case studies out there. We analyze them. We share them with each other. We do a a diagnostic kind of discussion about what about this, what about that, where is AI going, what did we know about the predator, what did we know about the victim, how can we make it so that this never happens again. And we had a case like that we read that just broke our heart. This little girl is 9 years old and she lives in Australia. By the way, somehow I made a video about that case and sent it out. And if you join us at millionkids.org, you will get our insider alerts. And that arrived all the way over to Australia to the mother, who then wrote to me and thanked me for highlighting her child's case. But I want you to think about this case a minute. She's 9 years old and she lives somewhere in Australia, big place. Anyway, and I love Australia. I got a couple of grandkids there. Anyway, so she's 9 and somehow she borrowed mom's iPad or whatever. And she hooked up with a guy in Beaverton, Oregon. So one of the first things I want you to understand is parents never get lulled in to a secure sense of that it's okay because they're halfway around the world or they're 5 states away. It does not matter where they live. You now live in a world without borders and a home without walls, as my book is called. And so what happened is this man in Oregon connected with a 9-year-old in Australia, and she is prepubescent. She sounds like a darling young lady, okay? And she's prepubescent, and he hooks up with her, and he's sent her pictures of child pornography. We now call that CSAM, child sexual abuse materials, but it is of an older man having sexual interactions with a young baby, a child, a toddler. And now this girl is 9 years old, and for the first time in her life, and hopefully the last time in her life, I have seen child pornography twice in my life. It is a life-changing experience, even for an old battle-driven person like myself who's seen a lot. And this young girl goes, wait, I am only 9, to which he sent her photos of animals being beaten. Now, what has happened here is this girl has gone online, perhaps with her mother knowing and perhaps not. I mean, that happens when you're 9, okay? You can't always be in every place with your child. But the other thing that I want to point out is kids have an innate ability to understand how to operate technology. And even though she never took a class in it, she was able to go onto that app well enough to connect to someone halfway around the world. But her life has been changed forever, okay? I want you to think about this. She hasn't been touched, but this girl's perspective on what a healthy sexual relationship should be has now changed forever as some creep, some pedophile halfway around the world introduced to her child pornography and animal cruelty. And she now cannot unsee it. And so I want you to understand how quick and easy it is with this kind of access. Access is a two-way street. It allows total strangers to access our kids and also allows our kids to access total strangers. Now, it isn't just our kids. I want to make something very clear here. We also combat romance scams. And this happens with grandma and grandpa. What happens is they have that access, and now people can know everything about you out there. You know, we had a sextortion case we looked at, and this young man said, Mom, they knew everything. They had a picture of my bedroom. They had a picture of me. They had a picture of you. They knew where you worked. They had a picture of our house. Well, the house had been on Zillow, and they had gone to Google Images or Google Earth, okay, and so what happened is they knew everything about him. So access is a two-way street. It allows total strangers to influence our kids. It also allows total strangers to seduce our older people that are online looking for love. You know, what happens here is if you're looking for love and you go online, or if you're just a bit lonely and you're playing one of those video games, they already know your profile. Think about what Google knows about you. You know, have you ordered some sex enhancement products of late? Maybe you're reading a book about self-improvement or getting over a divorce, or they know if you're on other dating sites and like that. So all of a sudden, they're your new friend, and they start to mirror you. That is what online seduction does. They start to mirror you, what all the things that you're looking at. It's very tempting to say and do things online that you would never say in person. And, when you go online looking on the internet for a relationship, you're going to pay a price, because the seduction out there is very, very easy to happen. They began to make themselves look like the mirror image of everything you're looking for. And it happens that quickly. And the other thing is, you find yourself responding. You find yourself going, well, I've never done this before. It is very tempting. How many kids did I talk to that have sent a nude online that said, well, I've never done it before. Why did you do it this time? Well, I was weak. They were cute. They made it look good. I liked them. I wanted them to like me. And the same kind of thing happens in romance scams. And this is the art of seducing online, is literally giving yourself everything that you wanted. It is the art of creating a fantasy. You'll often hear me say in my public speaking, which I do a lot of, that, your 13-year-old daughter comes home with a 23-year-old boyfriend and you're freaking out. You're saying you're grounded, clean up your room, and he's saying, hey, baby, you're hot. You are not arguing with her and you're not arguing with him. What you're arguing with is that fantasy that person is creating in them. The same kind of thing. I've looked at so many of these financial sextortion cases where the young boys are now taking their own lives, and it's absolutely tragic. And I can guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee you, but my perception is that those kids have never before ever sent a nude online. But this person pulled just enough of the right buttons that got them to do that. So it gives access, and it also gives a lot of information about you. Now, I'm going to go on with this in the next podcast, but I want to give you some things to think about before we close this one out. Here are some of the ways to not be seduced. Know who you are and what you stand for, okay? Know what your values are. And if somebody wants a nude, you go, no way, Jose, or no way, baby. I shouldn't pick on Jose, sorry. No way, never, never, never again. By the way, we're trying to raise the money to create a 1-minute commercial for TikTok for kids. Never, never, never again will I send a nude online. I did. I trusted him. He said he loved me. She was hot. And the minute I did, I was blackmailed. And so we want a commercial out there. If you want to subsidize that, I'd highly appreciate it. Go to millionkids.org, and donate. I'd appreciate it. Or you can contact me at Opal@millionkids. So in closing out, here are some ways not to be seduced. Know who you are, what you stand for. Set goals and don't let anyone deter you from your quest. And that's true if you're a widow. I was a widow for 2 years. Okay. Now I've been happily remarried and I'm very, very grateful. But during that 2 years, I made lists of what I stood for and what I wanted to do with the rest of my life that was valuable, so that I wouldn't allow someone to come along on one of those dating sites and take me astray and change my life. Set goals. Don't let anyone deter you. Question, then verify. If you're meeting someone online, and I know there are plenty of people who met on dating sites that have good relationships, but drag their image from that dating site and anything that you have of them over to Google Images and see if they're operating under other people's names or other people's image on there. Same name, different image, same image, different name. Look at that and verify. Never, ever, ever, ever send money to someone that you met online. That is the biggest. You're probably subsidizing a Nigerian or Filipino telemarketing scam. Never, ever send a nude online. And you need to have that conversation with your child before they ever have a phone. In fact, I encourage you to do a contract with your child that they'll never send anything online that'll embarrass you. They'll never go out and meet up with someone that's out there. And if they get themselves in trouble, they will come to you and ask for help and not do scary things. So remember that with the world of artificial intelligence, this is going to get crazier. And that is why I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to do one more podcast on this subject because there is so much more to say. My name is Opal, O-P-A-L Singleton. The organization is called Million Kids, millionkids.org, not .com. You can write to me at opal@millionkids.org. I go out, I do speaking. I do charge a speaker fee to do that. That's how we run our company and pay for our company. And like that. I also have a couple of books that you can find at millionkids.org. And always, always think of the I Believe in You challenge coins. They make great gifts, and they're only $22 at millionkids.org. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing this with others. And I'll see you next time on the Protect and Prevent podcast. Thank you.